Well, I'll tell you what they went on to, but first I got to fix something. I got Elaine's name wrong. The nickname. What her grandmother called her was Mandy. That was her nickname. And Elaine's full name was Elaine Mandilli Wessex. So I got that straight. I'm going to make mistakes like this because this is a long story with a lot of characters. Well, anyway, what they went on to was, as they were sitting swinging in this makeshift, I don't know what to call it. They were a little bit like a Cleopatra's sitting being fanned by their motion. Anyway, what they went on to was something that had happened 2 days before, and that was the hottest day of the year. And I also got something wrong about that too. It wasn't the hottest day ever in the city of Richland, North Virginia. No, but it was the hottest day that year, and it was really hot. And what they had been doing that day was pretty adventuresome in a way. They were outside in the little garden in the back behind Violet's house. A real nice garden with all kinds of flowers, a little paradise back in there, like a lot of people made in the spread. They would use, that's that neighborhood, they would use their backyard to make little enclosed gardens, and Violet had a real pretty one there with a bird bath. Well, anyway, they were back there, and this was really, really hot, but they were playful. You could easily enough imagine a 17-year-old being playful, but Violet was in her 70s, but she was playful too. They were only wearing bathing suits, and they had a couple of sheets and a hose, the garden hose. And what they were doing was they were wetting the sheets. Actually, they wetted them in the bird bath. And then they would take that wet sheet and they'd swing it in the air, like swing it around in the air, and then put it right on the other one. And when they would do that, that sheet would get, it would seem like it was ice cold, because this was a dry heat. And they'd squeal. They couldn't help it because it was so cold hitting their bare skin in spite of the heat. And they were doing this for quite a while. Well, meantime, they have a neighbor. His name's Teydis. And he was doing what just about everybody else was doing in the city, and that was staying as close to his air conditioner as he could. As a matter of fact, Teydis is a real piece of work. It's going to take a bunch of time to explain to you about Teydis. For now, I think the thing to think about him, the way to think about him is just kind of a grouchy old neighbor living alone. And Teydis thought pretty highly of himself, and the rest of the neighborhood, they indulged him in a way. I can't even begin to explain Teydis yet. I mean, not briefly. Well, anyway, he was sitting close to in the second story of his house, right beside it. Now it had a balcony on the back, but he wasn't on the balcony. He was inside the house, second story. And Teydis, one air conditioner wasn't going to be enough for him. He had another one aimed at him, and he was desperately trying to cool down. He was so miserable. And of course, the air conditioners, they roared, and he was convinced that nobody had ever in the history of North Virginia suffered as much as he was suffering from this heat. He was miserable, just hoping that he could somehow go to sleep and it would go away. He was truly miserable. Well, he was just about nodding off, and then he hears the squeals and the screams of these playful women down there, and suddenly he just couldn't take it anymore. He roared out onto his porch, and he made his hands like this. You might have an effect right here. He made his hands like a megaphone, and he shouted as loud as he could down at those two women. I'm going to have to swear. I don't really want to do this, but I have to tell the story. He shouted, "Shut the fuck up!" But he did it way louder than that, and Violet, she, well, both of the women, they were kind of shocked. What was that, you know? And Violet was feeling so playful. What she did was she turned up to him and shouted back at him, not doing this, but you shut up, you old fart. And then she took the hose and sprayed it across him. Well, that made him so mad. The fact that she had dared to call him a fart, and the indignity of being sprayed with the hose, he wound up and he was going to shout at her again. Well, not swearing this time. He was going to say, "I'll see you in," he was going to say court, but he wanted to make it, "I'll see you in court," but he wanted to make it as loud as he possibly could. And so he took a big breath right there. "I'll see you in," and he was going to shout it real loud. Well, by chance, right at that point, sort of in self-defense, Violet had the hose there, and she picked the hose back up, and she sprayed it across him. Well, that spray went right into that megaphone, right when he was taking that big breath, and he sucked in a bunch of water. Well, down he went, and he flopped around on his balcony, almost like a game fish being landed in a boat. That's what it sounded like to the women, him flopping around up there. You know, in a sense, he almost waterboarded himself, but it was accidental. And, you know, of course, that struck them as so funny at first. But that sound of him flopping around and him out of sight, they got kind of worried. They thought, maybe he's not okay. And they were about to go up or try to find a way to go up there or call 911 or something. And then they saw him get up, and he went back into the house. And so they knew he was okay. Well, anyway, the two women, they were sitting there reminiscing about that. And you know, Violet was thinking, boy, she's glad that he really didn't get hurt. That would have been a shame for him to drown on his own back balcony. And she sighed and then said to her Chima, or to Mandy, her granddaughter, she said, "Well, you know, it's not the first time that an unexpected squirt that you're not prepared for has changed the plot line of a character." And, you know, Mandy, or I should call her Elaine, just looked at her first, but then Violet grinned and winked, and all of a sudden Mandy understood, and she blushed bright red, and then they laughed at that. Maybe you don't get it, but Mandy did. And so went the conversation, but it was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a doorbell that didn't just ring, but kept ringing and ringing.